Have you ever sat down at a restaurant, opened the menu, and felt like every single word suddenly looked completely unfamiliar, even though you've been studying English for years?
That feeling is practically a universal experience for language learners. I remember sitting in a little cafe in Dublin, staring at a menu that said bangers and mash, and genuinely wondering if I'd accidentally walked into a fireworks shop.
Bangers and mash really does sound like something explosive, doesn't it? For anyone who doesn't know, what exactly is that dish?
It's just sausages and mashed potatoes with gravy. That's it. But bangers is British slang for sausages, because back in the day they used to pop and bang when they cooked. So the name stuck. But nobody explains that to tourists or language learners.
And that's exactly why ordering food can feel so intimidating. It's not just about knowing the language, it's about understanding all these cultural codes and slang terms that nobody teaches you in a classroom.
Right. In a textbook, you learn, "I would like a sandwich, please." But in real life, the waiter says, "What can I get started for you?" Or, "You ready to order, or do you need a minute?" And suddenly, your perfectly rehearsed sentence vanishes from your brain.
Vanishes from your brain. I love that expression because it's so accurate. One moment it's there, the next moment it's gone. So let's unpack the whole restaurant experience from start to finish, because there's a rhythm to it that actually becomes quite predictable once you understand it.
Absolutely. And predictability is your best friend when you're nervous. If you know what's coming next, you're already halfway prepared. Restaurants follow a pretty reliable script in English-speaking countries.
So let's set the scene. You walk through the door, and what's the very first thing that happens?
Typically, a host or hostess greets you at the front. They might say, "Welcome in, how many?" Or "Table for two?" That's your cue to say how many people are in your group. Simple enough. Then they might ask, "Inside or outside?" Or "Would you prefer a booth or a table?"
A booth? That's one of those words that confused me for a long time. In my mind, a booth was like a phone booth.
I can see why. In a restaurant, a booth is a long, padded bench seat against the wall with a table in front, usually with another bench or chairs on the other side. It's cozy and private. Some people specifically request a booth because they're more comfortable than individual chairs.
And what if you walk in and it's super busy? Do you just stand there awkwardly?
You might, and that's when the host says, "There might be a bit of a wait," or "It'll be about 15 minutes. A bit of a wait is a classic understatement. It could mean 5 minutes or 45 minutes, depending on the place. If they take your name, they'll call you when a table opens up.
Understatement. That's such an important concept in English communication. Saying a bit of a wait when they mean a very long wait is a way of softening the news.
Exactly. And softening is everywhere in service interactions. Nobody wants to sound harsh. So instead of saying, "You have to wait 40 minutes, they say, "It might be just a little while." You learn to read between the lines a bit.
So we've been seated, we have our menus. Now comes the moment when the waiter approaches for the first time. What should we expect?
The opening is almost always some version of, "Hi, how are we doing tonight?" Or "How's everyone doing this evening?" Don't overthink this. It's mostly a greeting ritual, not a genuine inquiry into your emotional state. The simple "Great, thanks," or "Doing well, how are you?" is all that's needed.
That's actually really helpful to hear, because I used to panic and think I needed to give an honest answer. Well, actually, I'm a bit stressed about work and my back has been hurting.
Please don't do that. The waiter is being polite and friendly, but they're not your therapist. Keep it light and brief. Then they'll typically follow up with, "Can I start you off with something to drink?" which we talked about earlier, or they might dive straight into the specials.
Ah, yes, the specials. I always get nervous when waiters start rattling off a long list of dishes that aren't on the printed menu, spoken very quickly, often with fancy French or Italian pronunciations.
The specials are a real test of listening skills, I'll admit. They're dishes the chef prepares that day that aren't on the regular menu. Waiters sometimes do speak quickly when listing them, but it's completely acceptable to ask them to repeat. You can say, "I'm sorry, could you say that again?" Or, "What was that second one?"
And if you simply didn't catch the name of the dish or the ingredients because they mumbled it or said it too fast?
Mumbled is perfect. It means spoke unclearly and quietly. If that happens, try, "Could you tell me a little more about that dish?" This is better than just nodding and hoping for the best, which is how I ended up eating tripe that one time.
The famous tripe story. For anyone who missed it, tripe is the stomach lining of a cow. Not exactly a crowd pleaser unless you grew up with it.
It has a very particular texture that I was absolutely not prepared for. But that experience taught me something important. Asking questions at a restaurant isn't annoying to the staff. It's part of their job. They'd much rather you ask than send food back or leave unhappy.
Speaking of questions, let's talk about dietary restrictions. A lot of people have allergies or food preferences, and communicating those clearly is important. How do you say that naturally?
Great point. You can say, I have a nut allergy. Is this dish safe for me? Or, I'm vegetarian. Do you have any options without meat? The phrase, is there any in this is your best friend. Is there any dairy in this? Is there any shellfish in the sauce? Be direct but polite.
I like the phrase, I need to avoid as well. I need to avoid gluten. It sounds a bit more serious than just a preference, which is helpful for allergies.
Absolutely. A preference is, I'd rather not have onions. A requirement is, I need to avoid nuts. The wording signals the seriousness. Waiters are trained to take allergies very seriously, so don't be shy about stating it clearly.
All right, let's get into the actual ordering language. We talked about I'll have and I'll go with as natural alternatives to I want. What are some other options that sound smooth and native-like?
I'm going to go with the pasta is very common. Also, I think I'll try the salmon. Adding I think softens it and makes you sound less certain, which is funny because you've already decided, but it's a politeness strategy. I'm leaning towards the steak is another one. It suggests you're still deciding but strongly considering that option.
Leaning towards, that's a great phrase. It creates a visual of physically tilting in the direction of one option. And what if you're genuinely torn between two dishes?
Torn between means you can't decide because both options appeal to you. You can actually tell the waiter this. I'm torn between the chicken and the fish. What would you recommend? Waiters usually appreciate being asked for their opinion, and they'll often steer you towards the better dish.
Steer you towards, meaning to guide or direct you in that direction, like steering a car.
Exactly. And the waiter might respond with something like, the fish is really popular tonight, or, honestly, I'd go with the chicken. The chef does something amazing with the sauce. That little word honestly signals that they're giving you their genuine, unfiltered opinion.
So we've ordered our food. The waiter might repeat the order back to confirm, which is a great moment to listen carefully and make sure they got everything right. Then the food arrives. What happens next?
There's usually a moment right after the food is set down when the waiter says, enjoy, or enjoy your meal. Your response is simply, thank you, or thanks, you too, though you too is a bit odd to say to a waiter since they're not eating. I still do it sometimes out of habit.
I've done that. Enjoy your meal, you too. And then you cringe internally because they're working.
It's such a common reflex. The waiter doesn't mind. They've heard it 1,000 times. But after that, there's usually a check-in. The waiter swings by after a few minutes and asks, how is everything? Or is everything tasting all right?
And this is not the time for a detailed critique, is it? They're making sure there's nothing seriously wrong.
Right. If everything is fine, delicious, thank you, or really good, thanks, is perfect. If your mouth is full, it's totally acceptable to just give a thumbs up and nod. The check-in is quick by design. If there's a problem, this is your moment to speak up.
Let's roleplay that. Say my steak arrives and it's overcooked. I ordered medium rare and I got well done. How do I address that without feeling like I'm being difficult?
This is where tone really matters. You catch the waiter's eye and say, excuse me, I'm sorry, but I ordered this medium rare and it seems to be a bit more well done than I expected. Would it be possible to get it cooked a little less? Notice all the softening. A bit, a little less, the question form.
That's so much gentler than this steak is wrong. You're not accusing anyone. You're framing it as a small discrepancy between what you expected and what arrived.
Exactly. Framing it as, I might have been unclear, or I think there was a mix-up, takes the blame off anyone specific and focuses on the solution. The goal is to get the food you want while keeping the interaction pleasant for everyone.
What if the waiter is nowhere to be seen and you need something urgently? Like you're out of water or you dropped your fork?
The subtle art of getting attention. If you can spot your waiter, try to make eye contact. Once you lock eyes, a small nod or a slight raise of your hand is usually enough. If they're really busy and not looking your way, a quiet "excuse me" as they pass by works.
I've noticed that in some cultures, calling a waiter over loudly is normal, but in English-speaking countries, it tends to be more understated.
Very much so. Loudly shouting "waiter" across the restaurant would definitely turn heads, and not in a good way. Understated means subtle, restrained. The whole interaction style is built around not imposing too much, even though serving you is literally their job.
Okay, let's move towards the end of the meal. Plates are cleared, you're full, and now it's time for the bill. How do you signal that you're ready to wrap things up?
Wrap things up means to finish. You can signal by closing your menu if you opened it again for dessert, or simply by looking around for the waiter. When they come by and ask, "Can I get you anything else?" you can say, "No thanks, just the check please," or "Just the bill for now, thanks."
And we talked about the check versus bill distinction. In the US, it's check. In the UK and Australia and most other places, it's bill. But I've also heard, "Can I settle up?" What does that mean?
To settle up means to pay what you owe. It's a bit more casual. You might say, "I'd like to settle up, please," and the waiter knows you want to pay. It comes from the idea of settling a debt, making your account balanced and even.
That's a useful phrase beyond restaurants, too. If you owe a friend money for concert tickets, you might say, "Let me settle up with you."
Exactly. It's transferable to other situations, which is why these phrases are so valuable. You're not just learning restaurant English, you're learning communication tools that work across many contexts.
Now the bill arrives. Sometimes it comes in a little leather folder, sometimes just on a tray. And this is where tipping anxiety kicks in for a lot of international travelers.
Tipping culture varies so much by country, and getting it wrong can feel awkward. In the United States, tipping is essentially part of the waiter's wage. The standard is 15 to 20% of the pre-tax total. Anything below that is considered quite low unless the service was terrible.
And in the UK or Australia?
Generally less expected, or the percentage is lower. Some places include a service charge on the bill automatically, so you need to look for that. If there's a line that says service charge 12.5%, you don't need to add extra unless you want to. Always check the bill carefully.
What if you're paying with a card and you need to add a tip? The machine sometimes asks you to select a percentage.
That's increasingly common, especially in the US. The handheld card reader will show options like 18%, 20%, 25%, or a custom amount. It's designed to make tipping easier, but it can feel a bit pressuring because the waiter is standing right there. Just take your time and choose what feels right.
And if you're paying with cash, you leave the tip on the table or inside the folder. What's the etiquette for that?
If you get change back, you take the bills you need and leave the tip amount behind. You don't need to announce it or hand it directly to the waiter unless you want to thank them specifically. Just leave it on the table before you walk out. The quiet departure is totally normal.
Now, let's circle back to something we touched on earlier, but didn't fully explore: describing food. When a waiter asks how your meal was, saying good gets boring. What are some more colorful ways to express enjoyment?
There are so many. It was outstanding means exceptionally good. The flavors were incredible is a bit more descriptive. It really hit the spot is a casual, friendly way to say the food satisfied exactly what you were craving. And I couldn't get enough of it means you loved it and wanted more.
Hit the spot. That's such a satisfying phrase. It feels very native and natural.
It does. And on the flip side, if the food wasn't great, you might need gentler ways to express that. If the waiter asks and you don't want to complain, but also don't want to lie, you could say, "It was all right," which signals mediocrity without being rude, or "It wasn't quite what I expected," which is diplomatic.
Diplomatic. That's the word of the day, really. So much of restaurant English is about being diplomatic.
It's true. Even when things go wrong, maintaining a friendly, cooperative tone usually gets you better results than being aggressive. Saying, "I'm sure it was just a mix-up," but disarms the situation and makes the waiter want to help you.
Let's talk about some specific menu vocabulary that often confuses people. We covered bangers and mash, tripe, sweetbreads. What about preparation methods? Grilled versus broiled versus roasted?
Good distinction. Grilled means cooked on a grill with heat from below, like a barbecue.
Broiled means cooked with heat from above, like under a very hot element in the oven. Roasted means cooked in the oven with dry heat, usually for larger pieces of meat or vegetables. Sautéed means fried quickly in a small amount of oil.
And poached? I always mix that up.
Poached means gently cooked in simmering liquid, usually water or broth. Eggs are poached. Fish is often poached. The liquid is just barely bubbling, not boiling vigorously. Simmering means cooking just below the boiling point, with tiny bubbles occasionally rising to the surface.
So if I see poached pear on a dessert menu, it's been gently cooked in some kind of liquid, probably wine or syrup.
Exactly, and it'll be soft and infused with flavor. Another tricky one is confit. That's a French technique where something is cooked slowly in its own fat. Duck confit is the classic example. It sounds intimidating, but it's basically just a very tender, flavorful way of cooking.
And what about portion sizes? In some countries, the portions in American restaurants especially are famously huge. Do you have any advice for navigating that?
American portions are definitely generous. You can always ask, how big is the portion? Or is this a large dish? Many places also offer half portions or lunch-sized portions, even at dinner. And taking leftovers home is completely normal. You can say, could I get a box for this? Or can I get this to go?
To go, meaning you're taking it with you. That's such an essential phrase. Coffee to go, food to go, a box to go.
And in some places, they call it takeaway instead. In the UK, you'd ask for a takeaway box. Same concept, different word. The waiter will often bring you a container and you pack it up yourself, though some fancier restaurants will take your plate to the kitchen and do it for you.
I have also heard doggy bag. Is that still a thing people say?
It's a bit old-fashioned and mostly said as a joke. I'll take a doggy bag implies the leftovers are for your dog, even though everyone knows it's for you. It's a little white lie to make taking food home feel less awkward. These days, people just say a box or to-go container.
A white lie, a small, harmless lie told to avoid embarrassment or be polite. Language is full of these little social lubricants.
Social lubricants, that's a perfect way to put it. They smooth out the friction of daily interactions. Restaurant talk is packed with them because you're constantly navigating between what you want and what's polite to ask for.
Let's do another scenario. This time, let's practice what happens when you want to make a reservation by phone. A lot of people dread phone calls in a second language.
Phone calls are their own special kind of challenge because you lose all the visual cues, but the script is pretty standard. You call and say, "Hi, I'd like to make a reservation for tonight for 2 people around 7 o'clock. They'll ask for a name and phone number and then confirm.
And if they're fully booked?
They'll say, I'm sorry, we're fully booked at 7. We have a table at 6 or 8:30. Then you decide. Fully booked means completely reserved. You can also ask to be put on a waiting list. Could you put me on the waiting list in case something opens up? This means they'll call you if there's a cancellation.
A cancellation. When someone who had a reservation cancels it. Opens up means becomes available. So many phrasal verbs in just a few sentences.
Phrasal verbs are the heartbeat of casual English. Open up, settle up, wrap up, swing by, check in. They just keep coming. The good news is you start to recognize patterns over time. Up often suggests completion, like finish up or eat up. By suggests a brief visit, like drop by or stop by.
That's actually a helpful observation. Rather than memorizing each one separately, you can start to feel the logic behind them.
Exactly. And that's when the language starts to feel less like a collection of rules and more like something you can play with and adapt. Ordering food becomes a creative act rather than a memorized script. You're not just reciting lines, you're having a genuine interaction.
And genuine interactions are what travel and language learning are all about. Food is this incredible universal connector. Everyone eats. Everyone has opinions about food. It's one of the safest and most rewarding topics to practice.
It really is. And restaurants are basically low-stakes practice environments. Low stakes means the consequences of making a mistake are small. If you stumble over a word, you still get your meal. The world doesn't end. You might blush a little, but you'll walk out with a full stomach and a little more confidence.
That's such a comforting way to think about it. Every restaurant visit is a mini language lesson disguised as a meal.
Disguised as a meal. I love that.
And once you nail the basics, you can start experimenting. Try a restaurant that serves a cuisine you're unfamiliar with and ask the waiter to explain the dishes. Try ordering for a whole table of friends. Push yourself just a little bit each time.
And if you have a patient waiter who's happy to explain, it can turn into a wonderful cultural exchange. I've learned so much about food traditions just by being curious and asking questions.
Most people love talking about their food culture. Ask, what's the most popular dish here? Or what do you personally recommend? And you'll often get an enthusiastic, detailed response. Those conversations stick with you way more than just silently pointing at a menu item.
All right, so we've covered the entire journey, from walking in and being seated, to ordering, handling problems, asking for the bill, tipping, and even making reservations. Is there any final piece of advice you'd give to someone who's nervous about their next restaurant experience in English?
I'd say remember that the goal isn't perfection. The goal is connection and nourishment. Nourishment isn't just about food. It's about the whole experience of being cared for and enjoying yourself. Waiters genuinely want you to have a good meal. If you smile, try your best, and treat them with respect, they'll meet you more than halfway. And if you mess up a phrase, so what? You'll get better next time.
Meet you more than halfway. That means they'll make extra effort to help you. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Language is a bridge, and every conversation, even a simple one about salad dressing, is a step across it.
Beautifully put. And honestly, some of my favorite memories from traveling involve restaurant conversations. The waiter who taught me how to pronounce cacio e pepe without embarrassing myself. The diner cook who explained what over easy meant for eggs. Those little moments of human connection start with being willing to try.
So wherever you are, whatever your level, walk into that restaurant, look at the menu, take a breath, and order with curiosity. You might end up with a story to tell, a new favorite dish, or even a new friend. Thanks for spending this time with us. Now go find something delicious to eat.